I'd say across Canada, Indigenous people have largely been left out of the energy picture so far.
Indigenous leaders in clean energy and climate change have put forward a new vision for switching to new energy sources, and an important part of it is making sure these projects uplift remote communities in BC and Canada. Sean Brennan from Haida Gwaii is with the Waialatus Indigenous Council, which made recommendations in this new report to get consistent federal funding for clean energy in places far off the grid.
So what we have here is a map of BC. In British Columbia, there are over 200 Indigenous communities across this province. Most of them are living in urban areas that are quite well resourced, but the minority of them are in rural and more remote areas, some of those struggling with poverty. Sean, so what are some of the communities that you've marked on this map? Like, who's living there? How might they benefit from a transition to cleaner energy?
Yeah, some of these communities that we have here on the map are actually very remote and isolated. So in order to get to like Echo Bay, Rivers Inlet, Bella Bella, or even Masset, you'd have to take a plane or a boat to get there. And so they are quite a distance from the grid. A lot of these communities here are really diesel-based, and what they're doing is transitioning away from that, building solar projects. There's initiatives within each of these to create renewable energy. Really, it's empowering a lot of these different communities to create that energy champion, and it's giving people a say in what happens within their communities, what happens with that energy.
According to Indigenous Clean Energy, major Indigenous-led renewable energy projects grew about 30% between 2017 and 2020.
Jobs that create a local economy, all that money's going right back into the communities. People are really happy and proud about what they're doing, changing the energy grid within our nations. Some of them are converting sort of old oil stoves into renewable-based bioheat. Other projects are taking diesel-based energy and replacing it with either solar, wind, geothermal, or hydro.
Brennan says Indigenous communities were never considered when the power grid in BC was formed, leaving remote places with no choice but to use diesel. After Canada put the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples into law 3 years ago, the federal government committed $300 million to fund a new energy transition in these places.
Canada is really oil-based or LNG-based, and that doesn't often have an Indigenous partnership involved. The renewable energy sort of movement or transition that's happening now is very much led by Indigenous people.
In Vancouver, Kier Juneau, City News.